All right, hello and good afternoon. My name is Clayton Flechsig, and today I'm going to be talking to you about animation. Furthermore, I'll be proposing a methodology in critiquing the visual and functional qualities of animation itself within an animated film or a live-action film. I've done this because recently I've sort of been thinking about how we review animation. I assert that the responsibility of animators and the metric with which to measure their artistic success is their ability to elaborate, innovate, and/or betray animation paradigms. I'll come back to those three keywords in a moment, but first I want to lay out a little bit of groundwork for the thought process. First of all, the question stands, why do we seek a more refined method when critiquing animation? I'd say that more often than not, people are assessing the whole film rather than the animation itself based on the merits of its visual qualities and endeavors. So that entails looking at the aspects such as movement, form, shape, etc. I argue the backbone and reference guide for the critiquing method should be the famous principles of animation, which have, as some may know, grown to be a bit fluent or loose in definition, which is fantastic and healthy, but here's some official background for anyone who's not familiar. Put forth first by Ollie Johnston and Frank Thomas, two veteran Disney animators, the 12 principles represent what an animator could and should do in order to make a subject's movement not only more convincing, but most importantly, more appealing. So they're kind of like the laws of physics, except with cartoon characters. In following these principles cleverly, an animation will surely be appealing, if not most certainly well done. So becoming familiar with these principles is imperative if you're pursuing or indulging in a lot of animated film. Likewise, they're to be referred to during an evaluative process, at least the one I'm proposing. Now onto the meat, elaboration, innovation, and/or betrayal. The principles in which the animator stimulates the eye, particularly the trained eye. I'll assert animation is not exceptional or worthy of great praise if it merely adheres to the principles, even if masterfully, but unaspiringly so. That all being said, allow me to illustrate what these could look like with some brief examples, starting with elaboration, which I mean to imply is the knowing use of the principles, but pushing them a little bit farther by discovering a new piece of the sort of infinite jigsaw puzzle. That is, stylistic techniques implemented for emphasis or appeal. A good example of elaboration would be Chuck Jones' The Dover Boys. In this cartoon, you can see Jones implementing a technique called smear animation for both comedic, stylistic, and production purposes. In doing this, he presented the viewer with convincing, albeit cartoony movement while saving the animators a lot of time. As for innovation, this is perhaps the easiest to achieve. It's basically novel ideas or gutsy spins on traditional approaches. Only slightly different than elaboration, but all the same important. An animator who is innovating is mostly adhering to the principles, but creates new ones here or there in order to present something new, fresh, or inspiring. Luckily for us, innovation oftentimes comes pretty easily thanks to technological advances. Animation is married with technology and typically has many up to massive revolutions thanks to new technologies or tools for the animator. Pioneering these counts as being an innovator in the format. I like the first Toy Story as sort of a champion for innovation, as it really embodies the concept of what it entails. The film was both successful technological leap for its time, as well as successfully transitioned the principles of animation, which had been conceived for 2D, into the third dimension, making for extremely appealing characters that everyone still loves. Finally, betrayal. It's sort of the avant-garde or experimental animation, simply put. Animators who choose to betray the principles so egregiously that it causes stir in the viewer may be onto some new stylistic effect. In this way, they further animation through their betrayal of currently trusted rules for success. An animated show that comes to mind recently that had a penchant for experimentation is Adventure Time. Disregarding consistency of motion and form, drastic art style, medium, and technique shifts used in numerous different episodes for stylistic emphasis have helped to create an odd, intriguing, and memorable show. Additionally, I want to highlight the internet and sort of this meme-style humor that is creeping out. It's beginning to propel animation as well, in my opinion. Silly as though it may seem, digging around the backwater parts of YouTube, you may honestly find a lot of fascinating and hilarious new approaches to animation which I personally anticipate catching on elsewhere. A concern with animation, more so than all film, is the lurking threat of the formula and cost cutting. I'd argue that the status quo of animation is low-quality work. We are rarely treated to a tentpole animated feature that takes any stylistic risks. Rather, the effort is always directed towards quickening and cheapening the process. As such, much of the burden falls on the animator to find a way to make ends meet artistically. Little slack is being provided, and if anything, unfair criticism often befalls the animators when they have almost no choice in the quality of their work due to higher up agendas and budgets. I believe that in establishing sort of a scientific-ish method of critiquing animation such as this, we can fruitfully evaluate, enhance, and develop animation as a whole. This, as an enthusiast, would be my main goal with this. Hopefully, a more clever community can create more pressure on studios and producers to really give it their all rather than shoot for as low as possible. So to recap, innovation, elaboration, and or betrayal of animated paradigms is how I believe the intertextuality of animation progresses forward. As such, it is the responsibility of every animator and studio to pursue such achievements in their work wherever and whenever possible. Even baby steps count. So that's it. I hope I've inspired you to have more of a critical eye when looking at just the movement itself in an animated film or an animated sequence in a film. And perhaps you will discover good animation where you've already dismissed a bad film, and vice versa. Thank you for your attention.